Hi everyone, I just want to do a quick overview here of SPSS and once you're in, kind of how to go about doing everything and what it should look like. So if you open up SPSS, it will likely look like this. I'm using the web browser version, so that's why this looks like this on my screen. I see this first window popping up asking me if I want to open up anything that I've accessed previously. I don't need to do this, and I actually don't even need to click New Dataset because you can see I already have one in the background here. And so I'm actually just going to go ahead and close out of this window. When I close out of that first window, I should be provided with just this option here where I have my blank data window showing here, and I can see a few different things about it. First, let me make it a little bit bigger so that we can zoom in a little bit and hopefully just make this a little bit clearer. All right, and so this looks a little bit better. We can see now that it's zoomed in a little bit more, and hopefully we can kind of see things a little bit more clearly. So the first thing I want to point out is that down at the bottom we have our different files. So you notice this is my blank file, and then I actually have a separate file that's open from a previous work that I was doing. And this is actually our first SPSS activity that we'll be doing together this semester. But I want to look at this clear version here and just talk about how to actually navigate through SPSS. So we have our data view down here at the bottom. This is where all of our data is actually going to appear. And you'll notice that the way this is organized, each row will be one participant. So one participant may have data in multiple different variables, which are presented along the top. We also have, along with our data view, our variable view down here. And if we switch to our variable view, you'll notice a few things have changed. Now we have each row representing a separate variable and then different qualities about that variable. And so you can see when I start to enter in a piece of information for, let's say, my participant number, you'll notice that it starts to fill out some pieces of information for that variable. It tells you what type of variable it is, whether it is numeric, so if we have numbers as our data, or we could change this to be something else, like maybe a string, if we had words that we were entering in for our data. I'm going to leave this as numeric though. The width is simply how many pieces of information can fit in for each set of data. So if it's a numeric value, that means it can hold 8 digits of a number within each cell. Decimals, how many decimal places that uses. Label, just whether or not you want to add a different label for the name rather than the actual variable name. Values come in handy when we do nominal variables because we might need to assign values for each group that we're looking at. And then the rest are not things we're really going to worry too much about, other than the measure, which we can select either nominal, ordinal, or scale, which actually comprises both interval and ratio measurement types. So that's the variable view. You would enter all your variables and the information about them, and then go back to data view, and you'll notice that our variable that we entered now appears here. And we can enter in our data as we go, and you'll see them presented here. Now, the main things I want to talk about in the rest of SPSS are the tabs up at the top. And so we have a few that we might use throughout this process, those being the data tab, which often is used in the first stages of looking at our data, where we're just kind of organizing and manipulating it before we actually run any analyses on it. So we might want to sort our data, or maybe we want to only select certain parts of our data. Then we have the transform tab, which we won't be using very much, but sometimes comes in handy to compute different variables or transform some of our data that we have. Then we have the main tab here of Analyze, which has all of our different analyses in it. The main ones we're going to work through this semester are Correlate, specifically a bivariate correlation. We'll also talk about some compare means, so we'll do some t-tests here, as well as a one-way ANOVA as well. So those are the two main places you'll want to know, as well as maybe looking at descriptive statistics like frequencies and descriptives if you wanted to do that as well. And then finally, we have our Graphs tab up here at the top, where we can either choose to do a chart builder and build things from scratch, or use preset graph types that we can choose from here, like maybe a scatter plot or a bar chart, and we can do these to create our graphs in that way. Generally speaking, those are the main things you'll need to know for SPSS. We'll try to keep things relatively straightforward and explain things as we go. If you have any questions, always feel free to reach out, and hopefully this gave you a little bit of an overview of just how to work in SPSS.